Perfect. So thank you, Lorenzo. Nice to meet you all. So I'm Nadia Schirò, and as told, me and Alessandra, we are part of the Recruitment and Assessment Center Office of Intesa Sanpaolo. So we are responsible for finding the right candidates for the different position we have all around the group, and we do the selection process. In this meeting of today, the aim is to present you the organization of our group, so who we are, our selection process, and then we will give some space to Fabio for the strategy in cybersecurity. In particular, me and Alessandra, we are responsible for the selection of the cyber division, and this is the reason for which we are here today. So, who we are, I believe that every one of you know our group. Intesa Sanpaolo in Italy is the leader in the banking system in different markets. So we are leader in the retail market. You see our branches all around Italy. We are very capillary in all the country, but we are present also in the other market. For us, it's very important, the corporate market, the wealth management market, and also the insurance market became very important in the last years. So we are aiming to become one of the leaders also in the insurance market. We are not present only in Italy because our strategy is to implement our presence in the international context. We have already had different branches of the corporate division all around the world, in Europe, in US, in Australia, in Asia. But we have not only branches all around the world, we have also a network of subsidiary banks, in particular in the Central Europe and in the Middle and North Africa. And finally, we are present in some cities, some big cities, with the representative offices that are the offices in which we analyze the market to understand if we can develop the business, and then if the business goes well, that became a branches. So what happened in these last years, in the last 2 years in our company? Two main aspects is important to tell you in this situation, in this meeting. One, we have the aim to develop our international market, and in particular to become leader also in the European banking system. And the other aim, these are the two main goals of our triennial plan that has been launched the last years. And the other main goal of the triennial plan is the digital transformation. So how we want to become leader in Europe. In fact, we are living a digital transformation, all the group. The main aspect of the digital transformation is the creation of EasyBank. I believe that every one of you has heard about it. EasyBank is the new online digital bank of Intesa Sanpaolo Group. It is important because it works in a completely different way respect to the other part of the bank. It is focused on cloud-native technology. It has a very important partnership with international startup and fintech as Thought Machine and Money. And so it lives in a context of innovation culture. The innovation culture is important in all the group. In fact, Intesa Sanpaolo, EasyBank is, we can say, an expert, but all the bank is living this transformation. And consequently, also the cyber market, the cyber security has consequences for it. And we are implementing and developing all the cybersecurity division because of that evolution. What is important about the culture, the life in Intesa Sanpaolo? So we have this innovative culture that is the innovation, the technology, but also the attention to innovation in general. I don't know if you know that we have the Innovation Center in Turin, that is a company of the group that support the startup in different contexts, private equity and so on. This innovation culture is also in our flexibility and remote working life. We have developed a very strong policy of flexible working from the places, so the fact that you can work from home, from remote working, in smart working. You can work from your home, but we have also a lot of hubs, so branches where you can work. So if you want, for example, you can work for branches all around Italy. But also with the time working, we can say. For example, we have we start this year with the short week of work. So we can work 4 days in a week. So the last day, the 5th day, you can stay at home in a permission, we can say. This is called the 4-9 hours, because you work 4 days in the week for 9 hours, because you have to cover the timing hour in the week. And I believe that we are the first player that use this kind of timing working time. Then this is connected also to the innovation in the spaces, because we have completely renovated the spaces of work. We have created open space in order to support this smart working. We go in less time in the offices, and so they are being transformed, focusing in more meeting point, meeting room, also to create this environment of sharing of idea, we can say. The last value that is very important in our group is the life of the colleagues in total, we can say, because we can say that in our group there is a great attention for the well-being of people and the inclusion that is seen in different meanings. So inclusion for women, where we pay great attention to the gender balance. Inclusion of culture, we pay great attention to the cultural balance. We believe that the culture of people that arrive from different nations, different countries are value for us. And then the attention to the well-being of the colleagues at all. So not only for the working time, but also for the extra time. We have a platform that is Care Lab, for example, that is a platform in which colleagues can find ideas for different teams, from the food life, the sports. We have an online gym where you can participate to courses. So the attention to colleagues at all. The attention to the colleagues is also, we pay great attention and focus to the professional growth of people, so the career of people. We have created a different program for the professional development of colleagues. One, for example, is the International Talent Program. That is the program characterized by a development in 3-5 years. We have selected colleagues, so that is for internal colleagues. So we selected some colleagues, the talent. These colleagues take part to this program for 3 years, and in this time they have very important experience that are interfunctional, interdivisional, and international. So in these 3 years, the colleagues can see different part of the group, understand these different activities and roles in the group, can live international experiences, and so at the end have, we can say, an accelerated professional growth. Added to this, there is, for example, the International Graduate Program. This is dedicated to external candidates, so we select new graduated candidates, and these candidates enter in the International Talent Program. So when we selected them, then they start with this path, with this 3-year path, in which the new colleagues has the opportunity to live this rotation, so 3 years in which they will see 3 different offices, sector of the banks, one of these in international experience, and so at the end decide together with the company which is the right role for him and to start the professional growth in Intesa Sanpaolo. Then, for example, it's very important to say that in Intesa Sanpaolo there are not only this program that is specific for talent, but there is a process that is all the years in the group that give the colleagues the possibility to change activity inside the company, to do the activity, the role that is better for them. We can say it is job at ISP, this process. And we can say that is the labor market in Intesa Sanpaolo. So every week we post internal position in the group, and everyone has the opportunity to change his activity if he has this desire. So great attention to the professional life of the colleagues in our group. Now I want to introduce you the selection process, so how you can become part of our group. All start from you. So you are the main point of the selection process, because you have to find the right position, the right application that for you is the correct for you, and apply. So tell us that you are interested to a specific position, and then we will contact you to give you a feedback, because we do a first screening of the CV. There is then the contact for telling you that you are in line or not with the position, and then we'll start the selection processes that now we will describe you. We will give you the feedback in any case, and at the end there will be the onboarding if the selection will be positive. The selection process, now we will describe you, but it is based on our soft skills model. So our soft skills model is based on the leadership model. So we evaluate the candidate on that skills that are important for our manager. So that skills are important, that skills that are important for the professional growth and to become the manager of the group. Which are the skills? We can divide that in three main arguments. That is the smart thinking, so the part of the skills connected to the smart thinking of candidates. For example, the assessing and analyzing, the capacity of taking a decision. Then there is the realization part, the entrepreneurship skills. For example, the individual endurance, so how you can manage stressful situation, the drive performance, how you are determined in arrive to a specific goal. And finally, there is the areas of the relationship part, so the connecting leadership, and that are skills, for example, like partnering, how you work with other colleagues, with other people, and your stakeholder influence, for example. So how much you are influence, you can influence other people. every one of that, in the evaluation of that, we evaluate also if you have what we call the boost, so that elements that give more importance, that give more strong to your competent, to your capacity, your skills, that are the courage, so your energy in putting yourself in the activities, the continuous learning appetite, so your desire to know everyone something new, and your social influence, so how much you are present in a group, how you can influence the group and the team. Now I leave space to Alessandra that will present you the selection, the steps of the selection process.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. Maybe I just ask if there are any question on what Nadia just present. If not, maybe we can just say that you can feel free to open your microphone, ask questions, or maybe write your questions in the chat and we will try to answer them as they arrive or at the end of our presentation. Said that, just focus on the two main steps of our selection process. As you can see here in the slide, we have a first digital step and a second live step. In the digital one, we have a video interview, which basically consists in some questions that will allow you to tell us your story, your experiences, and you will be also asked to solve a brief business case, so a concrete use case, just as a first challenge. For sure, when the video interview is completed, you will receive a feedback that will allow you to understand if you can move on with the selection process or if it just stops there. In case of a positive feedback, you move to the second step, where you will find the live interview, and you will meet there one of our a recruiter and also the business line involved in the specific research. So, for example, you will meet our cybersecurity colleagues. Okay. Most important thing is that, okay, you will receive a feedback also at the end of the live step, and this is really something really important to us, to provide you a feedback in any case. We can move to the next slide, and we want to share with you some additional information related to the video interview. As we mentioned, this is the first step related to our selection process dedicated to students and graduates. It's important that you bear in mind you can record the video interview whenever and wherever using your laptop or your smartphone at the time of the day you prefer. And most importantly, you can practice your responses, as you will have 2 attempts to record your video interview and before sending your final release. Also, in the next slides, we like to share a few tips to be well prepared for the digital step. So, for example, we suggest to pay attention to the moment and the location that you choose to record the video interview, to dress properly, and also to stay relaxed and smile as possible. We would like you to feel comfortable for sure when you record your interview, but also remember that it's a formal step, okay? We also suggest to maybe read carefully again the job offer, just to focus on the relevant requirements of the job. Maybe you can do some tests, okay, practice your response as we just said. Be careful, okay, to the questions, to listen carefully to the question in order to provide focused and relevant information. Always look at the camera, okay, and as we said before, try to stay calm, relaxed, and tell us your story. As mentioned, if the first part, if the digital step is successful, the next step is the real-time live interview. You will receive an invitation from one of our recruiters. The invitation is to an online interview. We use Teams as a platform. It's usually 1 hour interview, and it's divided into main part. The first one is a behavioral interview. As Nadia mentioned, we ask our candidates to describe how they behaved in past situation in order to understand the skills, the abilities they put in practice. And we think this is really important because past can be a good, how can I say, predictor of future performance. So we really focus on behavior in past situation in order to better understand your skills. In the second part, as I mentioned, you will meet with the technical line, okay, and for sure they will have all the time and space to ask you about your technical skills related to the position they are looking for. So this is just to give you information and hopefully useful details on how to prepare to our selection process. Having said that, if there are no specific questions, I really thank you for your attention. I invite you to visit our career site. You can also scan the QR code here on the slide. You will find on this career site a specific session dedicated to students and graduates that will provide you again information on the selection process. And also here you will be able to find in the coming days, in the coming months, the new opportunities we will open also for the cybersecurity division. And for sure, we would like to keep in touch with you. You can use the contacts we just wrote here in the slide. So you see our recruit mail and the contacts, mine and the one of Nadia. So thank you very much. Feel free to ask your questions, and I leave the floor to Fabio.
Right. So first of all, let me share my screen.
In order to share your screen, first Nadia should stop sharing her screen.
Yeah.
Because it's
right.
just one person that can share at the time. Okay. Now you should be able to.
Right. So apparently first I have to do something. I apologize for this delay. It seems it wants me to do something, but I can't quite figure out what. This is the problem with the Apple computers. They're always very nice and fast, etc., unless you want to do something that deviates just a little from the usual, and then it's an absolute nightmare.
Just a question: are you using the?
It should work now.
Okay.
Microsoft PowerPoint. Is it working now? Please tell me it's working.
Not yet.
Oh Lord. Yeah. Right. What then? Yep. I'm really sorry about this. I had not expected this.
If you want, Fabio, I can share. I can go on in sharing the presentation.
That would probably help. Yes. Once again, I'm deeply sorry about this.
No worries.
Okay. Just a moment. Tell me if you are seeing it, the screen.
Should
I
be
will
15, I think.
Oh. Okay, just a moment. Perfect. Okay. It is charging. Okay.
Okay, we can see.
Right, perfect. Okay, next slide, please.
Yes, I can try, but in this moment, okay.
Right, perfect. Thank you, and once again, I apologize for this little technical issue. So, name's Fabio Grassi. I work as Senior Data Scientist here at INTESA SANPAOLO. I can confirm what my colleagues just said. It's a very nice place to work. And so we don't have time for me to turn you into data scientists. So full disclosure, I'm going to be skipping some technical details and some steps. But for your benefit, I have marked some topics with the lightning symbol. So should you be interested, you can write them down and research them in your own time. Right, next slide, please. So why do we even bother with AI for cybersecurity? Is it because it's fashionable? No, it's because well, with AI, we can process far more data than any human could in a very short length of time. So that is, of course, our main reason. And it also allows for faster response times, and it frees up resources. Next slide, please. And so in this presentation, we're going to focus on phishing. Why phishing? Why this problem in particular? It's not, as you know, one of the most advanced techniques that attackers use, but it is one of the most effective. Next slide, please. As you can see, there was a 76% increase last year alone in the financial loss worldwide due to phishing. And so it just keeps getting worse. And the normal approach to tackle phishing would be, well, you could take several countermeasures. For example, you could block senders, you could block URLs. But next slide, please. This does not come without drawbacks. For example, what if the email that you received a phishing attack from was a legitimate email? It could even have been your own company's CEO whose credentials were compromised. Or what about URLs? Well, it's very easy for attackers to just register new domains after the ones that they registered before were blocked. So it's a constant chase, and it's not very easy to tackle phishing with these techniques. Next slide, please. So what do? Well, we use machine learning. Now, a machine learning process, as we're going to see, is an iterative process. But the main point is you always have to start with getting the data. There is no machine learning without data. And I can't tell you how to do that because every organization is different. Your organization might have a data warehouse, a data lake, a data ocean. They might have a relational database, a non-relational database, Hadoop, Spark, whatever. They might have multiple of the above or none of the above. So again, I can't tell you how to get the data, but for the sake of this presentation, we're going to assume that our friend, the data engineer, just gave us a nice data set to work with. Next slide, please. Right, and because we're talking about emails, phishing emails and legitimate emails, we're going to have to work with two types of data mostly. First, email body, which is fairly intuitive. It's what you read when you open the message. And then, of course, email metadata, and that comes in many forms. It could be number of images or the number and type and size of the attachments and the number of links. And one very important information is the registration date of the domains in the links inside the email. Now, why is this important? Because, of course, domains that are known to be related to phishing attacks tend to be shut down. So attackers are registering new ones all the time. So when we find a domain that was just registered yesterday, that does look a bit suspicious. Next slide, please. Okay, so Now, let us assume we got our data set from our friend, the data engineer, and now we can begin the process of actually processing the data. And this is going to be iterative, like I said before, because it could be that we're going to define some features, and then we find that these features don't really work, but we can only find this after we've trained the actual model. So we will then go back and maybe discard some features and maybe make some new ones. We'll maybe make some tweaks and changes, et cetera, So there's going to be a lot of back and forth in the real world. Next slide, please. Right. Before we can do anything, first, we have to do one very important thing. Next slide, please. We're going to have to split our data set into two parts. Next slide, please. And thanks. The first part is the training set. And this is the part that we're going to train our model on. And the next part is the test set. And that's the part that we're going to assess the model's performance on. Next slide, please. And the reason we bother with this approach, and by the way, it's not the only approach, it's not even the most advanced approach, but, well, we don't have time to go into detail about everything. But the reason we do this is we want to make sure that the model has learned to generalize rather than memorize, meaning that we don't want the model to simply learn by heart all of the answers that it picked up on during the training phase. We want the model to be able to make accurate predictions on data it has never seen before. And the only way we can know it has learned to do this is by testing it on data that it did not see during training. Right, next slide, please. And next, thanks. So this is what our metadata might look like initially, and it's an absolute mess. Next slide. Why is it a mess? Well, it has a lot of missing values, and it has a lot of text, and it has a lot of dates, and many machine learning algorithms can only natively process numbers. Next slide. And as you can see now, at the moment, we only have about 3 columns that our model could work with. Next slide. So what do we do? Well, with attachments, for example, we could very easily notice that the missing values are where there was no attachment at all. So we could safely replace these missing values with 0. But what about the attachment type, for example? Next slide, please. Here we could employ a technique called one-hot encoding. How does this work? Well, for example, every time we have PDF, we have one column that's assigned to PDF only, and every time we have a PDF in our email, we get a 1. If it didn't have a PDF attachment, well, we're going to get a 0. And we do this for every value that we encounter in the attachment column. So every value gets its own binary column. Next slide, please. And incidentally, this solves the missing value problem too. Now, with dates, we're going to have to get a bit creative. For example, we could calculate the day difference, so the difference in number of days between the day that the email was sent and the domain registration date. So for example, if a domain was registered on January the 1st and the email was sent on January the 11th, the day difference would be 10. And that sounds like a reasonable approach, but still, what are we going to do with missing values? Well, once again, missing values here appear to be where we didn't have any links at all. So what can we do? Next slide, please. Well, we could try to replace those values with 9999, just a wild guess. We could maybe assume that since there was no link in that email, maybe it's not very suspicious. It wouldn't be a wise assumption, by the way, but just for the sake of this example, we're going to pretend that it is. And So we could replace it with 9999, but it's not guaranteed to work. So once again, iterative. Now you're perhaps beginning to see what I meant earlier. We're going to try and see if it works. And if it doesn't, we're going to come back and make some changes. And what about, there's still one cell where we have two values because we had two links. So what do? Well, we could choose to pick only the smallest value, because maybe it was a phishing email where some guy inserted a link to, I don't know, google.com, which is a very legitimate email, a very legitimate domain. And then they inserted another link to some suspicious domain. So we're going to pick only the youngest domain. Next. Thanks. Right, so now we have a data set that looks like something that we might actually be able to work with, but we still have a problem. And the problem is in one of the columns here, well, two actually, we have very large numbers that go up into the thousands, whereas we, in some other columns, we only have zeros and ones. And for some algorithms, not all, but for some algorithms, this is a problem because the larger numbers are going to weigh far more than the others. And this isn't good. We don't want this. So what do? Well, next slide, please. What we do is we we rescale to zero mean and unit variance. And there is an easy way to do this in Python. It's just one line of code. So you don't have to worry too much about the mathematics involved in this operation. But the important thing is that now our data is scaled, and it looks a bit better, and it looks just about ready for some machine learning. But this was just a metadata. Next slide, please. We still have to work with the email body. And this could be an email body. And once again, it's just a bunch of text. And most machine learning algorithms cannot natively work with text. So what do? Next slide, please. Well, we do something similar to one-hot encoding, what we just saw before. It's called TF-IDF. It stands for term frequency inverse document frequency. And it's not the only approach that you could use. It's not the most advanced, but it is one of the most common and one of the easiest. And if there is one thing I've learned over the years is that it pays to start simple and then scale up in complexity as needed. So, TF-IDF. Every word gets turned into its own column once again, and the value is going to be the term frequency. So how many times each word appears in each email. And you do this for every word in every email in your data set. And next slide, please. Already we can see that we have some words that appear very, very frequently, such as I or the. And these, however, are probably not very informative. They don't really help us much. So what we do, next slide, please, is we introduce the second part, inverse document frequency. And what this does essentially is it penalizes words that appear very, very frequently in our data set. So for example, I, next slide, please, appears in all our emails, and so it's going to be set to 0. And the same goes for the. And right, next, thanks. So already, without even doing any machine learning, we can begin to see that there appear to be some words that correlate with phishing emails and with legitimate emails. For example, the word urgent could be an indicator that email is likely to be phishing. Next slide, please. Right, so now we have a data set that we feel confident we might begin to work with. What are we going to do now? Well, we have to select some algorithm. Unfortunately, there is no easy way of knowing which algorithm will work best. So we're going to have to try several. And next slide, please. Because this is a classification problem, we're going to be looking at classification algorithms. And these are a few examples of classification algorithms. Next slide, please. Thanks. And we're going to use our experience and also some knowledge about the algorithms themselves to choose which ones to skip. For example, K nearest neighbors would not work very well in this case because it's a distance-based model. And we know that when you're working with, potentially tens of thousands of dimensions, distance becomes a bit problematic. So in our example, we're going to use logistic regression and random forests and XGBoost. Next slide, please. Oh, and here you can see how easy it is to define the model. It's just 3 lines of code, one for instantiating the class, one for fitting, and one for predicting. All of the hard work, all of the mathematical arcane stuff has been done for you. Right, so here are some results. What you're looking at is confusion matrices. A confusion matrix tells us what the model did right and what it did wrong. In the green boxes, you see how many emails it classified correctly, and in the red boxes, how many emails it classified incorrectly. And with these numbers, we can begin to look, for example, at accuracy. Now, accuracy, it can be useful, but it's not always the best choice, especially when you have imbalanced classes or when you think that when you think that one type of error could be more important than another. Right, next slide, please. So instead of accuracy, which is just how many emails we classified correctly overall, we could be looking at precision. With precision, we're not looking at all emails. We're only looking at the emails that were classified as phishing. And here we see once again that XGBoost seems to be the best performing algorithm. But we could have good reason to look at emails that were classified as legitimate instead. Next slide, please. So instead of precision, we might choose recall as a metric. And if we wanted to look at recall, which is defined as how many of the emails that were classified as legitimate were actually legitimate. Thank you. So if we could choose recall, and but we don't know exactly which one we should go for yet, because, well, we might be more interested in precision, we might be more interested in recall, but how do we decide? Well, it's fairly straightforward. We need to introduce just one more metric. Next slide, please. And the next metric is, of course, money. So it could be that one type of error could cost the company more than another. So if you were, for example, to classify a legitimate email as phishing, maybe the company will lose 500 euros because maybe it was a customer who was asking some information, and the customer will get angry because he didn't get a reply, and he will leave the company and go to the competition. But what if the opposite happens? What if you classify a phishing email as legitimate? Well, then the company might lose a lot more money because someone's credentials could be compromised. Someone's bank account could be compromised. And here, the company will lose a lot more money. So in our case, even though the model the model with the highest accuracy could in fact not be the best choice because it will produce fewer errors, but the errors that it will produce will be more costly. Right, thank you. Next slide, please. Right, so far so good, but there's one thing I didn't tell you, and that is, next slide, please. So when we worked with the email body, we use TF-IDF, which is a nice algorithm. It's very simple, it works, it's tried and tested. But what about banks? If you're working with English text, for example, A bank could be the place you go to ask for a mortgage, but it could also be the riverbank. Next slide, please. And if you happen to be Dutch, a bank could be a bench. And if you're Italian, a cane could be a dog, but the very same word pronounced differently. If English or American could be a cane, a walking stick. So how do we solve this problem? Well, we have to resort to the dark magic of deep learning. Next slide, please. Deep learning enables us to distinguish between a Dutch bench, a bank, and a riverbank, and a dog, and a cane, and everything you can think of. You've all heard of deep learning. It's this fantastic tool that enables us to do all sorts of magical things, from computer vision to generative AI, et cetera, et cetera. So very interesting, very powerful, but it requires more data. It requires a lot more computational resources. And of course, it requires more experience. You cannot just get away with 3 lines of code like we did before. However, you can, and you should, take a model that was trained by someone else, for example, Google, and then fit that model to suit your needs. And this is called transfer learning. And this is extremely powerful because you can take a model that was trained by someone who has millions to spend on training, and then you can retrain it on your own data. And the model will retain that knowledge. It will remember the things that it learned during training by our friends at Google, but it will also learn the things that you want it to learn. Right, next slide, please. Now, I'm not going to explain how these models work because, well, deep learning is its own field of research. It's really, really advanced and complicated, and there's no simple way of explaining how it works, at least none that I know of. But suffice to say, with transfer learning, you can take a model and you can fit it to your data in a way that is not too different from what I showed you before. Next slide, please. And once you've done this, great. All that's left is to deploy the model. Once again, I cannot tell you how to do this because every organization is different. You might have to work with AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, something else entirely. But the one important thing you should always remember when deploying the model is that your model should be periodically retrained. And you should retrain the model because your data will eventually go stale. Your data will change. And your model needs to be able to pick up on these changes. And the only way it can pick up on these changes is with retraining. And depending on your data, you may have to retrain it every 6 months, every year, every day. That depends on the problem that you're solving. So to conclude, we've seen how a machine learning project works. We've learned that it starts with getting data, then we have to split it, and we train a model on some data, and then we test it, and we figure out which model performs best by selecting the right metric. And then we deploy the model, we retrain it periodically, and hopefully if we did things right, we'll save the company a lot of money, or we will even turn this model into profit. And that is all. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your talks. It was very interesting. Do you guys have questions? I have some, especially for Fabio, because I'm curious about some opinions. But first, I would like maybe some students to ask curiosities or just question? So we have a question from Samuele. I wanted to ask about the technical interview, about what we should focus about.
Yes, I can tell you that usually the technical interview is in particular focusing on the internship opportunities, because in this case, for you, the idea could be an internship interview. Will focus on the technical knowledge and the knowledge of some items linked to the position for which you are doing the selection. Obviously, every technical interview is tailor-made and is done according to the seniority level for which we are evaluating the candidates. So for an internship interview, the technical questions will be regarding the knowledge of some particular items, as algorithm, as told Fabio, or the knowledge of some instrument, the usage of Python or other instrument. While maybe in the more senior level selection, the technical interview is focused on the practice, so the experience practiced in some particular technical situation. But every technical question is linked to the seniority of the selection we are doing.
Thank you for your question, Samuel, and thank you for your answer, Nadia. We have another question from Luca. What does Google earn from sharing its models publicly? What is the reason for making them available to the public?
Oh, good question. So from the perspective of the employees who make these models, I would imagine that the obvious advantage would be that, well, you've just published a very important paper, and that's good for your career, that's good for your CV, as if working for Google weren't enough. But more generally, I don't know. That's actually a good question. Well, I would say one potential advantage would be that the more people use a certain tool, the more they test it. And the more they test it, the more you learn about ways that you can make it better. Seems like the only reason I can think of. I don't know. I'd never thought about it.
I will add something to this question. If you use some public model, aren't you scared or aren't you afraid of some adversarial attacks? Like, I know that you have some mails that you collected and you know that are phishing. You take an open model, a public model, and you train on this data set. Now, I have a model and I can try to exploit it to create a new mail that the model actually doesn't consider it as legitimate, but it's sorry, that it doesn't consider that as phishing.
Right.
I'm not too much into the machine learning stuff, so my technical words maybe are not appropriate, but the idea.
I understand the question. It was well posed.
Okay.
So the first thing that comes to mind is the attackers would have would require knowledge about what model we are using.
Of course.
And if they have that kind of knowledge, we've already been compromised.
Okay.
The second thing is the model that we use. Even if we take a model that was trained by someone else, it gets constantly retrained on our own data. So it's what you're raising is definitely an important issue, but I would say we're not completely exposed on that front for these two reasons.
Okay. Okay. That's actually a good point. I will, given that I don't see any more question, I will ask you another one. And this is a recurrent question also in the previous week, because I'm curious about what you think and if you're going to rely somehow on ChatGPT models. And if yes, do you consider the possibility to share your model to the public? I don't think so. Or maybe use some others model. Because now we have the possibility to share the models in ChatGPT. So.
Oh, right. You mean GPTs? Right. Yeah. I haven't played with that tool yet. I guess I'm lazy. I just like to use the models that other people make. Okay. But generally speaking, yes, I already use ChatGPT for work. It's an invaluable tool that saves a lot of time. I mean, I've been coding in Python for what, 12 years now. So I can code with my eyes closed. But still, if I can have ChatGPT do it for me, that saves me time to focus on other stuff. So yes, it's definitely very useful. It's I'm happy we have it.
Okay.
And I even used it to make some of the pictures that you just saw.
Yeah, I guess the one with the dog and the river, right?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer.
Thank you.
Do you guys have any more questions? Remember that you can still make some of them, even if we are discussing another one.
I can also add, guys, that if you want, apart from our email contacts, you can also contact us also on LinkedIn. So me, Alessandra, and Fabio to remain in contact with us.
Okay. I have a question, another question about the interview. Because it seems very technical, and I wanted to ask you if you have, let's suppose that I am going to ask you a position in INTESA Sanpaolo, and my background is cybersecurity it's an example, of course, of regarding a web application. What could be a question about the technical interview? An example, if you have some, or just to understand the level of details and the technicality of the question.
But do you mean in the technical part with the deadline? Yes. So maybe Fabio can also help us. But usually, so the question used by the line is the knowledge of maybe some specific instrument, as Fabio mentioned, I don't know, Python, or
Okay.
so if during the university path, if a candidate had the opportunity to use it, or maybe if a candidate has had some internship, if he has used during the other internship the opportunity to use that instrument, or if he had some experience in the internship to use the knowledge that learned during the university. So if he had the opportunity to practice the knowledge of the activity, the elements learned during the university path. And to describe also maybe some experiences, to know how he managed some practical experience in the cyber, maybe during an activity at the university, or maybe an activity during an Erasmus, I don't know, because there are different opportunities also at university to use the knowledge.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much, actually.
Okay, Lorenzo, I'm sorry, but I need to leave as I have an interview starting in a few minutes. But I thank you all for inviting me. Yeah.
Thank you for coming, Alessandra, and thank you for your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
So Fabio, you were saying something, but we actually heard half of what you said because there was some problem on the internet connection, I guess, or on the mic.
I don't know, but anyway, I was saying I haven't conducted any interviews yet since I joined INTESA. Okay. However, I did a lot of interviews at my previous workplace. I can tell you, no one is going to expect a lot of experience from someone who has just graduated, obviously.
Okay.
What you should expect is, well, since theory is the only thing that you will have seen thus far, you should be at least a little prepared on the theoretical background of whatever position you're applying for.
Of course.
So that's one thing. And the other thing that I would say is try to be polite, try to be curious. That's the one thing. One thing I always tell people who are just about to enter the workplace is ask a lot of questions. An interview is a two-way street. An interview should be an opportunity for you to learn, not just for the employer to learn about you. Remember, you want to learn as much as you can about the employer, and most importantly, you can use the interview as an opportunity to learn about technical stuff as well. When they ask you a question, it's okay if you don't know, but you can always turn the question back and say, okay, how would you have solved this problem? How would you have answered this question? And then, well, you will have learned something new. So take that opportunity. Ask questions. It's a two-way street. Always remember that.
That's a good advice, actually. Thank you very much. We have another question from Samuele. What are the things that most stand out in a curriculum? Erasmus, internships, the courses chosen during the master degree, bachelor degree?
Yes, so we can say different elements are important in the evaluation of a curriculum. Surely the fact if there are the presence of internship experiences, international experience, they are a plus. The timing of the courses, so if you have concluded the courses in the right time, obviously also the final vote. The final vote is an element, but also if you have participated to some other activities, if you have a mentorship in also other program, so everything that is linked to the areas of interest is obviously a plus, and is something that can give a difference respect the other curricula. So if you have something that is unique for you, valorize it. So valorize the elements that, in your opinion, render your CV unique, we can say. But on all of these, so there are on internship, the final vote, the timing, that are all elements that are important in the evaluation of their curriculum.
Okay. Thank you very much for the answer, and thank you, Samuele, for the question. We are a bit late on the schedule. I don't know if there are any more questions. I will wait just a second, otherwise I will say that we can conclude this open lesson. I remember to those that joined later to fill the form for confirming your attendance, and I think there are no more questions. So I will thank again Nadia, Fabio, and Alessandra that is not here because she had to join another meeting. Thank you very much for your talks. Thank you very much for presenting us Intesa Sanpaolo. And I wish you everyone a good evening and a good weekend. So take care, everyone. And I'll see you next week with the next at the next Friday talk. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Hamilton, for your participation. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.